Good evening. Glad to see that you are all chit-chatting and eating, and glad to see you here. That is wonderful. And I just want to let you know now is the time to go fill your plate again if you want. You can bring food in here. Obviously, you know that. But we will get started with a bit of discussion with the artist in about 5 minutes. So, now I'm on stage. Okay, so in about 5 minutes we'll come up here again, and we're going to enjoy Nathan's music, Nathan Howard, everyone, for about 5 more minutes. Switching on you to the other one. Hello, friends. If anyone can hear my voice and you're in the lobby, please come join us. That clock is so confusing to me. Everyone, please join in thanking our musician, Nathan Howard. That was beautiful. It was so beautiful. Thank you for bringing your beautiful sounds to us. It's been a while since I've stood up here and talked about art. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being willing to step out in the middle of all the stuff we have to do this week in Austin, this weekend. And I'm so thrilled that we have an opportunity to have an art opening, and I can come to it. I haven't been able to come to one in a while, so sorry about my giddiness. And I will invite the artists to come up here, but before I do that, I want to also acknowledge and turn our conversation to the maker of all things, who is with us in the room. Father in heaven, I thank you that you designed us to reflect your image, and you designed in us the ability to see beauty, to recognize beauty, to be moved by beauty, and to create beauty that did not before exist. Thank you for giving us, inviting us into that activity of yours. We welcome you here to be among us, to open our eyes and open our hearts. And I know that Wendy also would desire that your word and your light and your breath would move through her work and bring more of your goodness and beauty into these lives and into the world through us. Thank you. My name is Bree Shapey. I am a member as much as anyone can be a member of Hope Chapel. I've been around here for a couple of decades off and on, and I have loved being around art stuff here. It's been a very significant part of my life as a theater artist, and so I'm grateful to have been invited to be the MC tonight and have a chat with Wendy about art and let y'all sit in. So that's a tiny bit about me and why I'm up here with a microphone. I want to tell you a little bit about Wendy Dooldeniya, whose art we are enjoying and feasting on. Wendy and her husband have also been here at Hope Chapel for about 20 years. They have both been involved in leadership in our community in many different ways. And, wow. Sorry about all the uhs. Thank you. Like, oh, my voice, it's so loud. Wendy has also been a teacher of art for 25 years. She teaches just photography, fine art photography? Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that. She has herself an MFA, a Master of Fine Art in Fine Art Photography. We'll ask her about that. And that followed an undergraduate degree from Abilene Christian University in photojournalism. So that's an interesting little connection there. And the other little thing I want to mention before we get into this conversation, that I'm going to ask her about this as well, is that all of these pieces are from images that she captured with her cell phone. So I think that's fascinating. All right, so enough about, with my voice standing up here. Wendy, please come up and sit with me and let's chat.
You're the theater person or used to being on the stage. Even though I'm a teacher, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, just look at me here. All right, so I've enjoyed chatting with Wendy a little bit about her work, and so one of the things you mentioned to me earlier today was that I just learned that I mentioned that she has a undergraduate in photojournalism, and then that shifted to fine art photography. So for those of us who might not know what either of those are, but we know what a photographer is, mm-hmm. Like how do those fit together, and how do they fit together with what you do now?
That's a really good question. So for photojournalism is when you work for the news and you cover the news. So I did that with pride all 4 years of college. I took pictures of the Queen of England when she came to Texas. I took pictures of car accidents and plane crashes and protests and all sorts of things.
In Abilene?
And Austin. Yeah, both. Sure. And my senior year, I met with my heroes who were alcoholics and divorcing their wives and were depressed and had been in the Gulf War stuff. That was about that time. And I said, that's not what I want to do anymore. So I had to figure out what it really was. So when I went to do my master's at Savannah College of Art and Design, I decided my photography should have nothing to do with anything in journalism. And journalism is all very factual, very real, very precise. You can see everything, you can identify everything, and I didn't want my art to be that way. So I purposely did a whole series where every picture I moved my camera so that I took away my control. So all I did was find something that I thought was pretty with the colors and the light on it, and then I moved my camera. And I shot thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures like that. And that's what I did for my master's. I think Jerry's got one of those pictures to show you from that. So you can kind of see a little bit of this in that.
And was that on film or
That was
digital?
on slide film. So for the really, really old school people, that was all on slide film, yeah. And then I would put the slides together in the enlarger and print them. So that's one of them, yeah. So you can kind of see a little bit in this. Yeah.
So tell us also, I'd like to hear a little bit about the way you would describe fine art photography. What is distinctive about that? What makes it different from taking a beautifully composed picture of nature or people?
Well, those could be fine art photography as well. So I think when most people think about photography, they think of portraiture or landscapes. Like, will you take my portrait? If I say I'm a photographer, most people follow that up with, oh, do you take senior photos? Do you do weddings? And the answer is no. And so I've been trying to talk about myself more as an artist than as a photographer, because I think people understand that more when they see my work. But a fine art photographer is so broad. You could be a landscape photographer. You could be a portrait photographer. You could be an abstract photographer. You could do a lot of different things with that. But yeah, it's a lot broader than, well, I don't know, painting's the same way. If you say I'm a painter, but people expect you to be open to anything. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm going to take a wide left turn, sharp left turn, and ask you something very specific about these pieces. I would love to hear about a piece or a part of a piece that just gives you joy, that you love every time you see it. Maybe not every time. Okay, I don't want to make it too.
No, I'm trying to narrow it down to one. Try and think that through here. I like this one with the leaves right here on the left. My daughter was helping me title that, and it's called Journey to the Silver Sea. And I don't want to ruin anybody's interpretation for themselves of the pieces. So it's really important for me to let you interpret them how you wish, because that's the joy of art. It's not having the artist tell you, this is what I want you to see. But for that one, for me, my daughter helped me title it, and we were looking at Chronicles of Narnia maps. And she said, oh, the Silver Sea. And I said, what's the Silver Sea again? And it's the sea that they had to cross. And it's my favorite scene in the Chronicles of Narnia. If you've never read those, read those. But Reepicheep, the little mouse, goes over in a little boat across the waves into Aslan's land. And that's what that is to me. It's that moment when the waves part and he gets a glimpse into that. And so that one means a lot to me. I love that one. Yeah.
Would you still let someone buy it?
Yes, it's really hard to let someone buy your artwork because, yeah, our Leo wants to be on like a 30-year payment plan for some of these. So, yeah, it's hard to let someone, and I'm trying to treat them like they're paintings, not like I can just go print them over and over again. So they're like, there's only one that's ever going to be framed in that size like that. So yes, it would be a great gift to give that to someone, and I would be sad too. But I can look at it small, and that's okay.
So you mentioned the title, and that was something I was curious about. Tell us how do the titles come to you?
Some of them...
And do they all have titles or names?
They all have titles or names. Some of them just come to me, and then some of them I wait on, and then something will pop up later, and then a few I have to have help. And Arlie and Rowan and Chanukah were really helpful with that.
I want to pause and mention there will be some time for your questions. So if you do have questions, remember what they are, and I'll give you a chance to raise your hands and we'll ask them a little bit later. So we can see from the earlier piece from your MFA some suggestions of this kind of process or style. How would you tell us about the journey of your work from then and what you were doing in the kind of confines of school and that? How did that come to this, and however much of your actual process? I mean, obviously, to those of us who aren't photographers, might be hard to tell, like, is there actual painting in this? How you know, what is this? What makes up what I'm seeing here? And would love to have a picture of you creating, which isn't the painter at a canvas, which I can imagine, I'm sure it's off, but I have a picture of that. So what does the process look like for you? And the journey to getting to there, however you want to.
Well, that ties a little bit into the title. So I love the way the light sparkles off of water, and I'm always leaning over the little walkways along Town Lake and getting the little, I'm like, oh, I got to take a picture of that. Or on Zilker Park, the little streams that go through the botanical garden. Or my favorite thing when I'm on the ferry in Northwest, Pacific Northwest. But I love the way the light dances on the water. And I love the way shadows happen of trees and plants. It's kind of like, I feel like God's painting, just like the sunsets and the sunrises to me are like God paintings. And so I capture this. I think I gave Jerry one that I shot last week. Yeah, so I find stuff like this. If it's flipped around, it's the sun was setting, and this was on a trail near our house. So it's upside down. But you can see the little plants being kind of painted on that rock with the light. So I would start with something like that, and then I would crop out the stuff that's not the rock and the light, and then I would layer water pictures on top of it and other tree pictures, and that's where you get the colors most of the time. So most of those are this way. Yeah.
Do you typically start with an end idea in mind, or does it all?
Never. So I constantly am like gathering pictures, and then just and then I just kind of sit down one day and get all the ones I've gathered and start layering them on top of each other, and then playing with those and darkening areas and lightening areas and rotating them. And sometimes they have like 2 pictures that are together, and some it's like 6 or 7. So it's just kind of what it looks like it needs. It kind of comes together.
This is a ridiculous question. What's like the most layers you've put together?
I think 7 or 8 would be the most. Yeah, because after that it just blobs out. There's no information to look at anymore.
So you've been developing this way of creating finished pieces now for a while. What kind of, and you just said your process kind of emerges or grows, and I'm curious, what is it like in your process to make a mistake? Do things not work the way you want them to, and what do you do? when that happens?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of pictures that I keep on trying to layer together, and I can't find the match. So it's kind of like hunting for the match. Walden over there, there's like 6 different versions of Walden that I layered and layered, and I was like, it took a while to get the blue in just the right place. I fought the urge to get the paintbrush tool in Photoshop and just paint it on. And I was like, no, don't do that. Stick with the photographs. And so I was layering a picture of the water on top of that just to get the blue to show through in just the right places. But I have hundreds of pictures that aren't done, I haven't found the right match yet. So it takes time. Yeah, it takes time. So it's fun to see them together on the wall, and they're not all the same, which I like, but they go together.
I love hearing that you enforce that limitation on yourself. Are there other limitations to how you create it that you put on yourself?
Yeah, other than I think the back 2 pieces, I wanted it to be less, I know what that is. Like, oh, that looks like a leaf. This has got a little bit of it in it, but I like it to be where you have to look a little closer to see the little bits of layers showing through, or to wonder what are those things that are layered together. Yeah.
So what does that look like in the choices that you make? What is that?
My pictures are pretty consistent in what kind of photographs I layer together. So I layer shadows and light, which is like that little picture, clouds, reflections on water, and this blue sky. So sometimes you'll see some clouds floating. They're from sky pictures that I took, Journey to the Silver Sea and the what's it, New is it New Spring? I can't remember what I called it. In the back, those have clouds in them. But I'm pretty consistent with the things that I do. There's a couple that are unique, that I was in special places, and like the moss or the green kind of, it's not moss, I don't even know what it is. It's not kelp, but it's the green stuff that washes up on the shore in the Pacific Northwest. It's kind of a cross between kelp and moss. I don't know what it is. It was just covering the rocks, and it was so pretty, and I had to take pictures of it, so it showed up in a couple things, but yeah.
Is there a favorite location of your images that you draw from?
Anything with water. Yeah. Like the botanical gardens, Florence was great, Pacific Northwest, yeah, well, you can't, but yeah, water.
I want to pause. Does anyone have a burning question at this point?
Do they all have water, a layer of water?
No.
Okay.
Most of them do. I think there's only one that doesn't, actually. Yeah, there's only one that doesn't.
Would you say, are there others that you would consider part of this series of your work, or how do these particular pieces fit into the broader?
That's hard, when you're putting a show together. You think about how many pieces am I going to have in the show, how big am I going to print them, how are they going to fit in the space. So when I looked at the space, I knew it should be 12 or 13. And when I was going through the pieces, I tried to fit the 12 that went together, I felt like, in the same way. They spoke the same language. So yeah, I have a lot that aren't here, that I kind of felt like I wanted to wait on, or they would, if I had a space with more room, I would hang more. Yeah. He has a question.
Frank.
You choose the pictures and you layer them as, do they reflect your emotions?
Oh yeah, totally.
Let me
totally.
repeat that for the live stream people. Frank asked, what did you ask? Oh, no, you say it.
I'm just saying that obviously you choose the pictures and then you decide the layering. And I can't help but believe that it reflects not only your emotions, but the transitions, what you're going through.
Oh yeah, that would totally be true. And sometimes I'm actually surprised. The pictures that I layer together, and I don't think they're gonna look a certain way when they're layered, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, that was surprising. Oh, I like that. Or, oh, that is just like that. Sometimes it's about not just the emotions, but about the place, like the spirit of the place. The Nocturne over there and Salah over here. Those are like, I'm totally at peace. And yeah, those, and I like how they make me feel that way when I look at them too. But I was feeling very like, I have time to create and no stresses. Those were made over the summer. Because I'm a high school teacher and those are sacred, the summers. So that's most of the time when I get to create. Yeah.
This may be stealing Bree's question, but if I were your student or I were your intern, would you take me through how you do this process step by step?
Yeah, and I actually do that with my photography students. She's asking if she was my student or my intern, would I walk her through the steps on how to create things like this? And yes, totally.
Are you asking her to do that right now?
You want me to do it right now? So I had my students do this actually last month or over the last month, and we looked at some poetry. We read some poetry, and then I showed them some of these pieces, and I said, title them for me. How would you title them? What would you name them? And then I said, okay, now my ingredients are water and light and clouds in the sky and light and shadow of plants. And what would your ingredients be? So then they went out, and I said, now my stuff is also all outside. Yours doesn't have to be outside, but if you were going to layer your pictures together, what would your ingredients be? And so they went and took a bunch of pictures, and then I said, now I want you to play with layering, you know. For some students, I said, maybe you want to even have colors, like I want to stick with blues and greens, or I want to stick with the sky or rocks or some kind of theme so that it made it a little bit better, and then play with layering them. So on my phone, I use Snapseed to layer them sometimes. And they all end up in Photoshop at some point, and where I may layer 2 or 3 more on top of it after that, or I may, depending on which picture is first, the colors of the later layers come in differently, and so I may swap the orders of the pictures, and then I crop them, and then I dodge and burn, which means to lighten or darken certain areas of the picture. And then sometimes I bring out specific colors in certain areas with masking. All on my phone, plus on Photoshop on my laptop. Yeah.
I've got a question. Earlier you said that you didn't want to cheat by using another tool in Photoshop to add color to it. Why did you place that limitation on yourself? Because to me that just looks like another layer that you as an artist might apply. What makes that cheating, and why do you feel purist about your technique? I'm curious.
I don't know. I don't know. That was a limitation I wanted to put on myself, and I have no idea where that came from. No, that's a great question. I think it's, some artists, that's just a normal thing. You set your parameters. Because if you have to have some, and then you have to be open within that set. So like my parameters are what my pictures are of. I'm going to layer them together. And I don't have a parameter of color. I'm always surprised sometimes with some of the colors that come out, but I am drawn to blue, and I see that a lot in these. That's just something, when I went to try to paint something on top of it, it felt wrong, and so I stopped.
What strikes me is that you're limiting yourself to the colors that you take in from your lens, and then you have to use that, so you can lighten or darken it, but you're not allowing yourself to add other colors that you didn't take in with the lens.
Yeah, I don't change the colors that were there, yeah. So I don't take something that was green and make it purple.
Gino.
So, I've heard you talk in years past about camera photography, and this is photography on camera. Do you not shoot with a camera anymore? Is that prevalent these days? You used to always have your phone with you, or?
I always, he's asking, do I not shoot with other cameras anymore? I have all these nice cameras, and I don't shoot them. I even bought one right before COVID, and yes, I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of stuff in my closet. Don't come rob my house. But what I find is that we use what we have with us, and photography is definitely an in-the-moment art, and I don't want to schlep around a big, huge camera with me everywhere, and so my phone is what I have. So I bought a really nice Fuji that if you ever shot film cameras, my Pentax K1000 people out there, you'll know what I mean. If you were in high school photography, you know those in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Fuji, you turn the aperture and the shutter speed dials are in the exact same place as the old film cameras, and I totally nerded out on those. This is as technical as I'm going to get with you tonight. It's gathering sad dust on my bookshelf right now. I love it. I touch it and I talk to it, but I don't use it. And then, so there you go.
Do you think it helps your ability to capture what you want to know how those older cameras work, or how to use those tools? Does it make any difference?
I think that's more of a generational thing. So, like my students who are, in their teens or 20s now, can create the same ones, but our vocabulary is similar. So when I say dodge and burn, that's old school darkroom talk, but those are the same words in Photoshop. And so my language is the same, but no. It is not dependent on any of those cameras. I mean, if you know how to double tap and lighten or darken your picture with exposure on your cell phone, then there you go. But it's completely different than how you do it on a film camera. Yeah.
What's the best phone camera?
What's the best?
The one with you. Yeah, so the old photographer and artist adage is it's not the tools you have. It's the eye you use them with. So, a painter can have a fancy $1,000 paintbrush and paint terrible things. So, yeah.
Oh, yes, Nathan.
Yeah, so when you go at the beginning of the process, so you want to go create something, you finish your chores or whatever, trade, I guess. How do you get into the mindset where you can make something right? Is the first step I'm going to go out on a walk, take pictures of things, and then it just launches from there? Or is it first, once moving or whatever, I
good question, Nathan. So he was like, do I have to be in a certain mindset, or do I have a certain plan when I go out to make the pictures? Is that a good synopsis?
What gets you into the creative mood?
What gets me in the creative mood? So for those people who have children, you know that I'm always super admired of Phaedra Taylor and being a like her 100% an artist and making time during the day. But as a parent, it's dramatically harder to be creative. At least it was for me. And so Bree and I had talked a couple weeks ago, or what, last week? Feels like a year ago. So much has happened. I had a good 20-year fallow period where I felt like it was a big struggle to create things. And so most of the pictures I make go on walks with the dog, and I take my camera with me, or I'm on a field trip with my students, and I see light, like making shadows on a sidewalk, and my students are walking ahead, and I'm quickly over there taking nerdy pictures of light on those kind of, I mean, Chanukah knows to just walk on and just leave me. Or, we'll be walking along Town Lake for exercise, and I'm like not exercising because, yeah. It's a collection, yeah. Rarely do I get to go out for the purpose of creating art. Now, this summer was the first time I've got to do that in a long time. I took a trip by myself to Orcas Island with the whole goal of just taking pictures and making art. Oh my gosh, it was the best thing ever. Unfortunately, it's not cheap, so I don't get to do that much more. But having time to make art is a beautiful gift that is definitely a first world kind of thing most of the time, to have time like that. But as my children are getting older, I have more time, so that helps me because I'm also working full-time as a teacher. But I'm jealous of the people who can read a poem and then create. And part of mine is requirement of going outside, so weather plays into it, and when I'm usually done with my chores, because you said that so well, it's dark, and then I can't take any pictures. So,
what about the stage where you're at your laptop layering things? Do you, that 20-year fallow period, was that no images, or do you use images from that period now that you have time to sit with the laptop
some
and layer?
Of them are from very old. And last week, I downloaded I just went to my Flickr archive where I used to back up my old cell phones and was downloading pictures from my Flickr archive and some film pictures that I had backed up digitally, and I was downloading those to start layering some new ones. And so it's constantly look at that shadow. I forgot I took that one. That's really fun. Or I saw some that were really dark. And I was like, what if I played with dark pictures? What, is that too moody? So I'm playing with that for fun right now. But yeah.
Kevin, I saw your hand first.
So I have two questions. One I'm asking on behalf of another. That first question on behalf of another is, you mentioned that several of these pieces you're engaged, they make you feel peaceful, or you're in a peaceful place when you shoot them. Can you go into some detail about the other emotional context that you're in when you're making these photos? Do you ever allow yourself to make these photos when you're angry? And if so, does the anger change it at all? And so I'll ask my second question.
I never make art when I'm angry, because it's a bad state to do anything in. No. Chanukah and I were talking about this last weekend. It feels like a year ago. All of my moments, I feel like that I make art, except for that week this summer, are stolen. they're stolen moments. And so whether I'm layering them together or out shooting the pictures, there are little moments here and there. Last Sunday before church, I spent 15 minutes layering pictures. Sometimes I'm sitting in the pew layering them on my phone during the singing.
It's inspiring.
Laurel is like, text me that picture, that's my new screensaver. She looks over my shoulder. She's actually done that. So there are little stolen moments. And sometimes, like, church kind of gets me, the singing, the worship gets me in that mindset. And sometimes it's weird, the light coming into our house, and there's a quiet moment, and I'm like, ooh, this is a good time to do this. I don't do it at night. I need it to be sunny when I do the editing usually. That's weird. And I don't do it at school because my room is a cave. There's no windows in it. I have to have, that's weird. I just realized that. Yeah, it's always when there's sunlight out that they're edited. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take the mic to you guys.
Yeah, second
and love
question.
The live stream watchers a little better.
How would you good Lord. How would you characterize, if you would characterize, your voice within the dialectic that goes on between artist, the work, the audience, and maybe even God?
That wasn't your question, that was the other person's question.
That was the other person,
Well, all of the pictures that I make, I feel like are little gifts from God, little moments, little things that I got to glimpse and see. And so, like, you know, like that cheesy little rock that happened to be on the trail that happened to have like this little light and shadow painting on it. It was like, oh my gosh, look at that. That's so cool. I got to take a picture of that. Or that water sparkling is so pretty. How can I, you know, I'll take like 80 pictures and they all look basically the same. But I felt like this series was, if you've ever heard of a muse or read that, I felt like a lot of this was outside of me and it just came together, and then I was like, oh, look at that. That's it. That's just right. That's perfect. I don't need to do anything to that. That's the way it was meant to be. So some of those are that. And I feel like that is a conversation between me and God. Because he made all those moments that I happened to capture with the camera, and I felt like he kind of guided me in those moments to notice them. And they spoke to me as I put them together. So it is a lovely thing when I'm putting them together, because I feel like I got to relive those moments, and that he's getting to speak to me. None of these were necessarily made to be in a show. They were all made for me. They were going to be made anyway. And I've been doing that for a long time. I think I just got more specific with my parameters, my ingredients. Is that good? Yeah.
It's good.
I have 3 questions. When you sit down to do the layering process, once you have all the photographs, how much time do you spend on average? Is this 2 hours, 20 minutes?
Each one's different. So yes, some of them are 5 minutes, bam, it's done, like that's it. Like, and it tells me when it's done. That's why I said I had all those that aren't done, that I haven't found the right combination, and they may never be. And some of them I've worked and worked and worked, and they got put away, and then I came back to them, and then the right match happened. So, the Journey to the Silver Sea is one of those. It took me a long time.
When you were talking, it made me think of Ansel Adams, maybe as your antithesis with the gear, and then George O'Keeffe with the light. Who would you say are some of your artist inspirations?
Most of my inspirations are poets. Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote about inscape, which was that each plant and flower has its own spirit and is kind of preaching its own sermon. And I think Buddhism does that too, says that too. So that's always resonated with me. And sometimes, you know, I feel like there's a little poem or a song that comes to me while I'm doing it, and I'll write it down in my phone or on a notepad or something. I like Mark Rothko, some, not huge, but some, and because I like the colors and the kind of the texture in it. I love Monet, which I think it kind of shows in that one over there. So those would be, so the Impressionists, you know, there's some other people whose names are totally blanking with me right now. There's a French painter who's not really well known that I saw at a museum that I took pictures of his paintings because I was like, that's it. When I did my master's, I was told by one of my professors that I was a painter at heart, and I really appreciated that. And, you know, maybe this might answer your question better. We did a process called gum bichromate where you paint and then do a thing, and it went miserably terrible to the point where the professor was like, that was not a good idea for you. And I've always wanted my stuff to look like paintings, and I think a lot of these do. So I was glad a lot of people thought they were paintings instead of photographs. So there you go.
Have you ever thought about a new process, or do you feel like you have a lot more time camping out in this process before doing something completely different with your art?
I think what I've been playing with right now is I also have thousands of pictures of graffiti paint peeling off walls and old rusty paint off of pillars in downtown Austin where they remodeled the building and there's like a nail hole. You know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm super drawn to those. They're super boring pictures, but if you layer them on top of each other, they look really cool. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Karen will be the MC for the next one of these. Yes, Bill.
How do you account for the, to my eye, remarkable in-focusedness of this picture right here, the one on the right in the middle, as opposed to almost everything else except for the one on the far left? What's going on? Is this a good state of mind?
No, that to me was something that we were talking about, you know, moss on the side of the ocean, and that was what that was. It was just me taking pictures of something outside of my normal ingredient list. I was drawn to the color and the texture, and then I actually think there's some wood bark in there that I thought was cool. But there's also water, and there's some shadows in there. But yeah, the lines on that one are real dramatic to me. Yeah, that just happened to be the something that spoke to me while I was out there.
This has been such a rich feast of conversation. And yes, what is your name?
My name is Rowan. So this is a bit on the technical side. When you're dealing with photographs taken on your cell phone, sometimes the ISO can get really low when you're trying to enlarge them so that you end up with a lot of grain or texture in the photo, and it can mess up when you're trying to print something larger. How does your layering process affect how the end result comes out compared to a photo that you would normally take on your phone that you haven't edited or manipulated yet? And how does that influence your process?
So the base layer, the first picture that I open in my app or in Photoshop has to be the highest resolution. If it's not, then we end up with this one over here. That's as big as I can print that one. And I worked with a really great printing company from Germany to print these, and they looked at the resolution and everything, and they kind of gave an estimate as, don't print it bigger than this. And they were right on the money. So, so I printed these. There were 2 limits on how big I printed these. One was the printing company telling me not to do it, and Chanukah being able to make the frames in the garage. So there we go. So shout out to Chanukah for making all the frames from hand.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Wendy. Okay, so maybe this is kind of a weird question, but I heard you say stolen moments kind of over and over. Do you kind of feel like you don't deserve some of those experiences and some of what you've been able to capture?
No, as a parent, you have stolen moments. Sometimes they're with love, and sometimes they're with light. And so, as a parent, you take those little moments and do the best you can with them for yourself. It is a little selfish, you know. You feel selfish. You give yourself all day to someone else, and to take a moment for yourself is selfish. And as an artist, you have to constantly say, that's okay, that's who I am. So, yeah, they are stolen moments. They're stolen away from somebody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think she dodged that a little bit. Okay, one more. Yes, Gino. Bring us home.
Thank you, Bree. So I was curious about the yellowish painting on the back there. So I love the beach, and it looked to me like when a wave washes in, then washes back out on the beach. That's what it looked like. That's probably not what it is, though, right?
Nope.
Okay. But it was an interesting thing to me to notice. And I thought that's probably not the beach, but it sure looks like it could be.
No, see, and I love that. I love that. You and Bill both talked about artwork and saw other things in it, and that's why I don't want to tell you what's in them, because sometimes it makes me appreciate my own artwork more, because you see those things. So I like that. I would love to, lie and say that's what it was, because that's really good. Thank you guys for hanging out so long. This is a lot of talking. I love it.
This has been good. Oh, you guys.
One more. For those of you that aren't from Hope Chapel, Debbie Borman is old school, known for, on our worship time, just adding extra songs on and keeping the worship time going longer. Mm-hmm.
Do you see most of your pictures as ingredients or moments?
Moments.
And if they're moments, can you ever see specific layers in this, or are they homogenized?
In some of them, maybe 2, I can see specific moments, but the rest are all blended together into something new. Yeah. But they are moments. I like that, kind of like our memory. Like if you said you took a trip somewhere, it's not, sometimes you get a snapshot in your mind of a moment, but to me it's also the sounds or the smells, and everything's layered together, and that's what they become for me. Yeah.
I'll just make it quick. There's a book entitled Wasting Time with God, and it's a book on Sabbath. And when you were saying snatching moments, I was kind of feeling like, for you, is this kind of a place where you experience where you're wasting time in a positive sense, where it becomes almost like a Sabbath resting place for you, because there's those moments of just, oh, I'm escaping into that? Or
Yeah, a number of years ago, Courtney's here. Courtney Daniels and Melissa Trantham and I did a Sabbath show where I had, I woke up on New Year's Day and was reading something, and I just felt like God say to me, you need to do art once a week and make it on the Sabbath, and make it your Sabbath. Your Sabbath is art, and make. And so I put it out on the Hope mail list and said, anybody want to join me? And Melissa and Courtney did, and we did the whole year. I mean, we actually did it, a whole year of making art once a week. It was really good. And we put the show up. But that's the last, like, my master's, working the Sabbath, which was, I feel like 10 years ago, Courtney? And then this. So they're little precious moments, little moments that, like, speak inside of you. Like, I love when we come back from a walk and I took a couple pictures, because I feel like, oh, there was this moment, I got to see something, and if I'd been at home, I would have never gotten that gift. Yeah.
Good. I imagine your Father in heaven saying, yes, those are my stolen moments with my daughter.
Yes, oh, I like that. That's good.
And you brought him into your conversation of work. Is there a quality or name of God or your relationship with God that has become more tangible or more real because of this work? I'll just limit it to this specific work.
Well, not to sound like a photographer, but light. Light speaks to me. I can tell you when the light changes, when the colors of the light, I'm like, oh, we're going to fall. The light changed. No one notices, well, very few people notice the small color changes of the light in the seasons until they're real dramatic, or when a sunset's going to be really amazing, or things like that. When I did photojournalism, we did black and white photography mostly. And after a while, if you shoot enough, you start seeing in black and white. You can, like, mentally transition your mind. And my dad said he dreams in black and white from black and white TV. That's what he said he used to. I don't know. Is that when you had black and white TV? Those of you who didn't have color televisions, there was that small little section there that happened. So to me, I feel like passing that little rock on the trail last week, I could have easily walked past that and never noticed it. So I just kind of feel like I'm noticing light in the way it's making images more. And that's God. I always liked in Revelations when it says, there will be no sun and no moon, and I will be the light. And I always wonder, what's that light going to be like? Because I like the sun a lot. And so I wonder, and I think that's really cool to imagine.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Bree. That was really good.
Thank you. Thank you all for your wonderful questions, your great attention, energy. We can stay in here with the lights on for at least another 30 minutes or so if you want to spend time now with all of this in your mind and soak in the images, or just, talk to each other, enjoy more of the tasty feast out there. And I don't know the name of the caterer who did such an exquisite and beautiful spread for us. What's her name? Do you know her name? Rebecca Price. Thank you so much. We're very blessed. Thank you.
And I hope Nathan's going to come back up here and play some more music. Yes.
All right, y'all.
Awesome.